Listen, for the past week, I have been feeling so unmotivated to go to the gym. And I was thinking about it because when I first started my training journey, lifting weight, eating well, and also training 5 days a week, I was actually so motivated and I didn't tell anybody. I was just doing my thing. I had a goal. I understood what I was doing and I was genuinely happy with my progress. For me, the goal was body recomposition. I wanted to gain muscle. I knew I needed to eat more to actually allow myself to gain some weight. And I understood that this was part of the process. I knew I wasn't going to look exactly the same throughout the entire journey. And I knew there would be, a phase where I gained some body fat along with the muscle. The plan was to just later on start cutting so that I can lose the extra fat from my body. So this was the goal. This was the vision. I liked it. It made sense to me. I was happy with it until I started telling people. Everybody had an opinion. People started noticing that I was gaining weight and everyone had something to say about my body. And what's crazy is that I already knew what I was doing, I knew this was a phase and I knew what my goal was. I knew where I was trying to get to. Somehow, the more I listened to other people, the more cautious I started to feel about my body. And I thought to myself, why did I feel so confident about what I was doing when nobody knew? But the moment I started telling people, I started doubting myself. And that's really made me think, this happens with so many things in life. Sometimes you have a goal and you're completely at peace with it because it belongs to you. And you know why you're doing it. You know what the process looks like. You know that it might not make sense to everybody. And then you tell people, and this is where you ruin it, okay? Suddenly, you have 10 different opinions sitting in your head. One person thinks you're doing too much. Another person thinks you're not doing enough. Someone thinks you're changing too much. Someone else thinks you should be doing something completely different. And before you know it, something that felt so clear to you starts feeling confusing. And I think that's why sometimes you really have to learn to keep things to yourself. Not because you don't value other people's opinion. I don't think you should value other people's opinion anyway, but because not everyone needs access to your plans, your vision. You don't have to give everyone the opportunity to comment on something that is, still building, because when you're in the middle of becoming completely something different, you're already going through it internally. You're changing, you're learning, you're figuring things out. You don't need everybody else's voice in your head telling you whether you're doing it right or wrong. Sometimes you just need to trust yourself. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. You don't have to announce every goal. You don't have to explain every decision you make. You don't have to tell people that what you're doing makes sense. If it makes sense to you, if you thought it through, and you genuinely believe in where you're going, just keep going. So let's actually talk about why keeping things to yourself is powerful. Because I'm not saying you should become secretive or stop talking to the people you love. I'm talking about learning the difference between sharing your life and giving people access to your plans. There are things that are still growing inside you that you don't need to put out into the world. Maybe you want to change your career. Maybe you want to go somewhere. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you want to change your appearance, or you want to leave a relationship. Whatever it is, even if you're trying to reinvent yourself completely, sometimes the best thing you can do is just work on it quietly, because when you tell everyone what you're planning to do, you suddenly invite everyone into the process. And now you're not just trying to achieve the goal anymore. You're also dealing with everyone reacting to the goal. Someone will say, "Are you sure?" I don't think that's a good idea. And someone will tell you about somebody who tried and failed. And even if they mean well, you can start carrying their doubts as if it's your own. That's the part that I don't like, because sometimes you are perfectly confident before you start explaining yourself. You had your plan, you were excited, and then suddenly you're sitting there questioning something that you were completely sure about yesterday. So sometimes silence is not insecurity, silence is actually protection, okay? And another thing I think keeping your plans private is important is because talking your goals can sometimes give you a temporary feeling of accomplishment. You tell everyone, I'm going to do this. People get excited for you. They tell you how proud they are of you. And for a moment, you get that feeling of, wow, I'm doing something with my life. But you actually haven't done it yet. So you've just talked about it, and sometimes that little bit of validation can make you feel like you've already made progress when you haven't. And that's why I personally love the idea of letting your actions speak before you do. Don't tell people you're becoming her, just become her. Don't announce the transformation, let people notice it. And I think there's something so powerful about that. When you quietly work on yourself, nobody knows exactly what you're doing. You're not constantly checking whether people approve. You're not waiting for compliments. You're not trying to prove that you're changing. You're just changing. So how do you actually start this? First, stop announcing your goal while they're fragile. You do not need to tell people every new idea you have, okay? Give yourself time to figure out whether you actually want it. Sit with it. Let the goal become real before you start talking about it. Learn to keep things private even when people ask, okay? And this is really easy because first of all, you don't owe anyone a detailed explanation of what you're doing. You can simply say, I'm working on something, or you can just simply laugh and change the subject, to be honest. Who cares, right? You just don't have to give everyone the full story. This one is really important. Before you accept someone's opinion about your life, ask yourself, would I actually want their life? Seriously, because we give people's opinion way too much power when we wouldn't even choose the life they're living. Not every opinion deserves equal weight, okay? Learn to sit with uncertainty by yourself, because when you're doing something new, you're going to have moments where you doubt yourself, okay? That's normal. But instead of immediately running to 10 people asking, learn to sit with yourself. Ask yourself what you think, what makes sense for you. That's the question you should ask yourself, because the more you learn to trust your own judgment, the less dependent you become on outside validation. And finally, let the result introduce you, okay? You don't always need to say, I'm about to change my life. Just go and change your life. You don't have to announce you're becoming more confident. Just be confident. You don't have to announce you're working on yourself. Just start working on yourself. You don't have to announce you're going somewhere. Just get up and go. And let people look at you and say, wait, what happened to you? Something is different about you. You change. And I think that's such a beautiful way of becoming her. Not loudly, not desperately, not trying to prove anything. Just quietly deciding your life is going to look different. Honestly, if there were people who laughed at you, who bullied you, who genuinely thought you were never going to make it, just let them think. Seriously, you don't need to convince them that they're wrong, okay? You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to give them update what you're doing. Let them be wrong about you. Meanwhile, you keep working on yourself, keep growing, keep improving, keep becoming the woman you said you were going to become. So I will close this on that note. I will see you next Friday. Same place, same energy, another conversation.